I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving for Sigma Pi. We have an awesome volunteer summit lined up for you all today. Here shortly, you guys will hear from CEO, Executive Director John Frost, who will be giving us an update on the state of the fraternity. Next, we will have Kevin from Arnold and Porter, who will be giving us some legislative updates. Then we'll take a little bit of break, and then we will have Micah from Fraternal Law Partners, who will be talking about conduct processes as well as housing and zoning issues. Then we will take another 15-minute break. Then we'll come back and we'll have Ryan Post, who is the chairman of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee, giving us an update on our bylaws, policies, and procedures. And then we will go ahead and end the day with a little Q&A session, answering any questions that you all have.
So here's some things that we've dealt with. So as many of you know, I was hired in July of 2017. Was the fourth CEO executive director since July 2012. So the fraternity had dealt with a lot of tumultuous kind of waves throughout that time period. And during that process, had to bring on new people, just had to look at the team and find out what is the value proposition we're providing. We also found out, some of you may have been dealing with this, is we had a lot of our groups dealing with 990 issues. What that meant was they did not fill out their 990s. We have been able to clean up several of those. There are still some we're working on. If you're dealing with your chapter on this, guys, this is a serious issue. It's one that we're looking into even more, talking with some of our peers to find out how they have improved this. But to give you an example, we did have a chapter that actually had their bank account seized by the IRS, and they received a fine letter of upwards of $10,000. Our chapters need to do their 990s. If they're on Omega Phi, they ought to be able to just go in there and take care of that via Omega Phi. If they're not on Omega Financial, then hopefully they have an accountant working with them. And most of them should be the pretty simple 990 EZ. It should not be a whole lot of work. But as we continue to look into this more, we'll keep you updated. And then you see, we also had the time period of 2018 to 19. Not only did we bring on a bunch of new staff, we also had the 2 wrongful death claims against us. And we went through a legal and risk management assessment to kind of determine how well is Sigma Pi fraternity positioned to be responsible for ourselves, to ensure that we are providing the proper training and proper education, and that we're in a position to be able to defend the fraternity when somebody wants to make an allegation against us. Then as we were going through that, many of you recall that we sold the headquarters there. We also launched a national health and safety accreditation process, which I am glad to say that was not very easy. We did have to find some groups, but we had over 95% of our undergraduates go through this. And it's very important, not just for us as an organization, it's also important for the officers. So when somebody in their chapter makes some poor decisions, the officers can also know that they're protected from liability because their members went through the training. Then as you see, we then had COVID hit us and we had to cancel convocation. And then, as I said, we got hit with the increase on the insurance, which was almost like a gut punch throughout the entire time as we're dealing with everything. And then one of the highlights of it is we rolled out a new member education program. Ironically, we were planning that before COVID, but COVID allowed us to actually test it. And we still see some things we're working on with it, but it's coming along nicely. We did change our invoicing model. I know that some young men that I've spoken to have told me that they really appreciate it because it's a lot easier for them than getting 3 or 4 different invoices throughout the year. And then our Constitution and Bylaws Committee has been undergoing an entire overhaul of our documents, and Ryan's going to talk about that here a little later on today. And then unfortunately, we got down to only 6 full-time employees. We do have 7 now. We brought on Drew Carpenter to help with growth, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And then we're all getting used to this virtual environment. So that you guys know, mid-year of 2022 will once again be virtual. We've already almost raised all of the money we need to cover that virtual experience thanks to our donors. So for those of you on here that are helping with that effort, thank you very much, because it'll once again be complimentary for our undergraduates to attend. And then, as you can see, we're doing a lot of preparation for the future. We are taking a look at what are the educational programs we have available, how many scholarships are available, chapter educational funds. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the work that our foundation has done as well. But one of the things I always like to talk about is the financial health of the fraternity. It's very important. Our operating capital year over year has grown 28%. And I'm going to share more on this here in a minute. Our accounts receivable, it is up 3% year over year, and this is as of June 30. However, I will say that, as you can see here, we had a 17% reduction in greater than 90 days. So that 3% increase is actually new invoices that had been entered right there before the end of the fiscal year. And then we were, selling the headquarters, I know made some people a little upset, but we had to borrow about $700,000 of that to help cover the insurance this year. And I am proud to say that we paid all that back before the end of the fiscal year. So congratulations and thank you to our chapters for still meeting their financial obligations. Give you an idea, since 2005, this is our balance sheet. So we are at the highest point in the history of the fraternity. We continue to keep an eye on the finances of the organization. And one of the big pieces here, and I know that on a previous call, somebody had said, well, what does this mean to our chapters? This here is very important for the fraternity. As you can see, when I started, we only had 3 months worth of operating cash sitting in the bank account. Now, keep in mind that we don't start invoicing until October 1. So July, August, September, by October 1, I'm nervous. Can I pay bills? Can I pay salaries? Now we're at a point where we have just under 10 and a half months worth of operating capital, which means that we also can start putting investments ahead of time and not waiting. I guess the best way I can say it to make it simple is, we were no different than an undergraduate chapter, where we were waiting till guys got back to school to pay their bills. So we couldn't do things ahead of time. Well, now we can, and I'm going to share some of the things that we're doing. But before I get there, to give you an idea, COVID did hit us, as I mentioned. However, what I find very interesting is this part right here. Out of the total initiates, 320 of those were actually from spring 2020 who were not able to initiate due to COVID. So they initiated after July 1. However, our average retention rate is only around 75%. And as you can see, we were over 80% retention rate. I say that some of that has to do with the Bayard program, and then some of it I think is also our chapters just doing a better job of getting their guys reported earlier and not waiting to do their initiations. And then the highlight was when school started to reopen here this past spring towards the end of the year. Well, we started to really see our groups get out there and do some recruiting and start getting guys initiated. To give you an idea of what this looks like over a time period, you can see here that we were climbing, but our financial position was declining. So it's kind of hard to say that we're doing well just because numbers are going up from pledges and initiates when all of a sudden the balance sheet is dropping. So we have rectified that. Now we have dropped. We all knew during this time period right here, we would see a drop because this was after we were all over USA Today and the national press for unpositive publications. Then all of a sudden COVID hit us. And then when COVID hit us, we dropped again. So what are we doing with that? Well, number one, we do know that COVID, as it shows here, 40% of our chapters are now under 25 men. And some chapters we know, and you all know, are probably always going to be 15 to 25. That's just because of the campus dynamic and the campus makeup. However, what we have seen with COVID is even some of our chapters who are more historically 35 to 55 have also been impacted because of the impact of COVID. So what we have done is we've put some stuff into recruitment. Now, if you recall what I said a few minutes ago, when we didn't have a lot of operating capital, we couldn't make investments because we had to wait till we got payments in. Well, now that we have it, we're making investments. One of the things we've done is we have a 4-year contract with Chapter Builder. That's costing us over $100,000 over 4 years. We did put money into the certified fired up recruiter. I do want to say on that one though, we spent 10,000 and we didn't have a lot of turnout. We only had about 8% of our undergraduates actually take advantage of that opportunity for them. So I don't know that we're going to invest into that again. We may look at that a year from now, but right now we don't see it as a good investment if they're not going to take the opportunity to participate in it. We are sending everybody recruitment supplies. So please know that here in the next few weeks, your chapters will be receiving a whole box full of recruitment supplies. We feel that's important because we know that they were also hit financially. And so this way they have stuff to go ahead and help with their recruiting. Very important though, that if you're a deferred recruitment chapter, you will not get your supplies till closer to December, January, because the amount of men that deferred recruitment chapters, you probably average 2 to 3 guys in the fall. The vast majority of you are recruiting heavily in the spring. So we are timing when we ship these based on that. And I think we're even timing for some of you that are on the quarter system. We're also timing for when you get back for the quarter system. We have an alum that we've recruited, and he's out. Some of your chapters he may have already visited. He's been doing videos around the country for us. We're going to put together a national Sigma Pi recruitment video that chapters can use as well. That we find this will be something I've seen his work already, and it's pretty good. I'll say that, like, he does a good job, and because he's a brother, he puts that extra special love into it, which we appreciate. And then the other part you see, and this is another thing where we were making the investment, we did invite 112 undergraduates from 34 chapters to participate in the virtual growth summit. 18 undergraduates and 3 volunteers from 12 chapters took us up on that opportunity. So thank you to those that were able to participate. This was very good, especially to get an understanding of recruitment, but also, using the Chapter Builder system. So if your chapter is still not prepared with Chapter Builder, please contact Scott Quinlan and he can help get the training set up for you, because it'll especially help if you haven't used it yet. You can set up all your social media with it and have the box, the content that you want to capture, name, where they went to high school, what their interests are. And then you as volunteers can also keep an eye on how well your recruitment chairs are doing their work. So it gives you the opportunity to double check how well are they moving. One of the things I want to talk about again is the Bayard membership experience. This year we did launch it. I will say that only around 9 chapters actually met the 6-week policy. We're going to spend one more year helping get chapters trained, but after convocation, so starting next year, understand that if groups are not meeting the 6-week policy, we will have to look at some accountability measures. This is a national policy and it's very important. What we don't want to do is get to where some organizations have gone to like a 72-hour or 96-hour new member program. We don't want to get there. But what we have seen is if your new member program is extending beyond 6 weeks, it's probably getting to a point where some activities are being brought in that are not conducive to what we expect out of Sigma Pi men. So it's another reason we want to go ahead and get them initiated. And then we've added stuff to it that it's beyond just for those of us with the grayer hair. We pretty much just learned about Sigma Pi history with the I Believe manual. This stretches above and beyond that, so that way we want them to be prepared when they join us. One of the exciting parts is based on what we've received, that even during COVID, as our men were quarantined, they still were able to give back. So congratulations to those groups that were still able to do some sort of community service. I will acknowledge one, our chapter at Grand Valley State, Theta Road chapter, they held a golf outing last year for an organization in their community called the Hero Foundation. And they were actually the only organization that raised any money for them that year. So those little small things may seem minuscule, but for the organizations that our chapters are supporting, it means a great deal for them. Their CEO was very appreciative that at least one group still did something to bring in money for their organization. Then we have our own foundation. Our own foundation has done a phenomenal job this year. Give credit especially to Vice Chairman David Presson, who has done a wonderful job with the investments. And then overall, our foundation has done a lot of work. As you can see, the contributed support is up 54%. And one of the things when I was looking at it that's exciting is the average gift is up 58% year over year. So it's not just that, it's that donors are seeing more confidence and making larger gifts. We've been able this year to secure some $10,000 and $25,000 gifts from alumni. In addition, we've seen 26 young alumni sign up for the OWL Society. So thank you for all of you that are still continuing to donate, whether it's to your CEF, to a scholarship, to one of our educational programs. These things mean a great deal because, we can't rely on just the 5% of our membership that are undergraduates, because they're still living off ramen and tuna and all this other fun college food that none of us really enjoyed too much. But it's those of us that are in different positions in our lives as we look at where do we want to do our charitable support. Hopefully you do consider that the fraternity be one of your charitable support mechanisms. The other part we're doing is we're investing into alumni events. I've already had the opportunity to go to 2 of them this year. It's a big deal for us to really invest into getting out and meeting our alumni. Just got back a week ago from being up at the Indy 11 soccer match in Indianapolis. Got to meet some alumni from our Alpha chapter, from our Gamma Kappa chapter, from our Theta chapter. So as you can see, there's more outings. There's events that are taking place. There's a new one for those of you that are in the Northeast. It's a clay shooting event. So that'll be something different that we're trying. And then if you see these, if you're able to attend, please attend. If you just want to support those, please let us know and we can let you know how to support them. If your alumni club is having any events, please let us know so we can get that up on the national calendar as well. And then if you need help communicating, let us know so we can help you promote and get the word out. The other nice part that's happened this year is we've been able to launch our leadership speaker series. Here you can see the different gentlemen we've already had the opportunity to speak with. We have more speakers being lined up. So if you think of anybody that you know that can be a good speaker, has done well in their career, please send those names over. And we will definitely want to vet them and talk to them. But it's been great with these gentlemen so far. If you weren't able to attend the last one was really special. That was with Ken Zampese, who's with the Washington football team. As you can see, him and his son initiated 30 years apart. So that was a really cool interview that his son got to reestablish his chapter. And that one's going to be coming out in the Sigma Pi Quarterly because we recorded them. And we want to let everybody see that one. And then the final note will be that we are preparing. You're going to start seeing some marketing coming out for the 125th celebration next year in San Antonio. That one is going to be different. So for those of you on here, everything that you know about convocation, go ahead and take it out of your memory banks because it's going to be a lot different. We're actually, all of the business sessions, well, not all of them, but the primary business sessions, which will include the ratification of all the bylaws, that will all be conducted virtually around this time frame next year. When we get to the site, we'll have one day, which will be business, because we do have business that we have to conduct. And then we're going to have we have a bunch of speakers that we're lining up, and then we're also going to have fun. So bring your families. We're going to spend a day at Six Flags. Signal Pi is going to surround Six Flags. We're going to go out there and just have fun because, you know, we're celebrating 125 years. And I will say it, I don't mind up being recorded. You know, guys, a year ago, the finance task force and myself, the Grand Council, all of us, we did not know if we were going to be here. Let me just say that it was a lot of concern of, will we have to file bankruptcy? Will the fraternity be able to survive this pandemic and an insurance increase? I am beyond excited to say that not only did we survive it, gentlemen, but we're coming out of it stronger. We're coming out of it stronger than we went into it. We're in a much better position. We have a whole host of volunteers that have put in a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's all been positive. You know, we've sat in rooms and we haven't always agreed, but when we sat down and we got out all of the nonsense, we all agreed what was in the best interest of the fraternity, and it is amazing. And I'm looking forward to getting us all back together in San Antonio.